Hi, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of our cast. Today, we're going to be talking about one of the key challenges that businesses in this region faces. Employee turnover. Employee turnover is not something that has come upon us just because of the current environment. Even before Corona struck us, employee turnover was one of the largest challenges within this region, especially for industries which are more people-driven, service industries, and have a huge orientation towards delivery of customer service. And that kind of begged the question to say, is it that companies are finding the best talent and are being unable to retain them, or is it that they're not starting off with finding the right talent? Today, to discuss this topic, I have with me Sumeet Nayyar. Sumeet has been in the region for almost 13 years, and in his day job runs Affinax Partners, which is an audit and tax consultancy firm in Dubai. However, more recently, Sumeet has found his passion and is now branching out into helping SMEs and startups and advising them on their business models. And that's exactly how he met our second guest, Kyriakos, who, for the benefit of everybody listening in, I'm going to call K from now on. So K has been an F&B hospitality professional for more than 20 years. But recently, he found his passion as well and has branched out into creating innovative technological solutions, which he's bringing into the market through his company, Lycos. So Sumeet and K, thank you very much for joining us today.
Pleasure to be here, Asim. Thank you.
So, talking about employee turnover, which we see fairly huge. I mean, service industry at times has reported as high as 30% employee turnover. What, Sumeet, according to you, really drives that kind of a turnover?
Asim, it's $1 million question. And the problem is in the stage of planning itself. A lot of companies in the region take a bit more reactive approach to recruitment and rather than more proactive. So the planning stage itself is an issue. And then comes the question of how do you source for talent? Talent is available, but it's the right talent, which is the question here. I think these two are very, very key issue relevant in this industry and especially in the region.
Right. And Kyriakos, from your point of view, I mean, it is such a huge transition that you have made, right? Being a hospitality professional, being out there running, high-end restaurants and F&B operations, you kind of moved into, coming up with solutions that would help companies find the right talent. What kind of drove that?
So the whole idea, I mean, when you're in operations, the whole mindset is about finding solutions.
Right.
And the very major question was coming when we're seeing good people leaving the businesses, looking at their opportunities, they wanted to excel or for their own personal reasons. So I came to start thinking why these people are leaving and how can we keep them to stay longer for us. Because this is very much linked with your whole guest experience.
Right.
So the whole idea for us, and being in hospitality, we're performing an art. If you allow me, it's the art of looking after people.
Right.
So first stage is our people that interact with our guests.
Right.
So all these people leaving, they're causing a major drawback on the guest experience.
Right.
To tackle this, I went to a journey to find out how Fortune 500 companies recruit and how they manage to retain their employees, which are very, very successful companies. And in this talent acquisition and talent management process, we came up to find that we do have some systems that we can model for hospitality and they can help us to tackle this turnover, which, as you say, it's up to 30% in some cases.
Right.
And or it can be even higher for some standalone operations.
Right, right. So tell us a little bit about how you've kind of gone about creating this assessment tool, and what is the base that kind of drives it, and how can it help companies?
So we're focusing on the metrics. We're focusing on the outcome,
right.
Which the outcome is we want to provide companies with an ROI-driven solution,
right?
Meaning that we can measure. And we want to model for success, meaning that based on the latest findings, and this is how we started, we hired a Harvard-based company with Harvard University researchers and which run by ex-IBM executive, and to create models that will predict for us who's going to stay longer and who is going to be more productive for a specific role within the hospitality, one of the segments of the hospitality.
Right, right. So, Sumeet, I mean, from your point of view, considering that you work with organizations which are startups and are potentially running or looking at doing things differently, what level of focus have you seen with the organizations you work with that they put into something like this? I mean, is it something that organizations naturally think about, or like you earlier said, it's reactive and therefore nobody really thinks of these kind of tools or these kind of assessments to help them find the right talent, which can help them predict their their longevity or stability?
Yeah, I see. What I've seen predominantly in this market is that because there are many other issues connected with running a business and taking it to a different level, is that there's a liquidity issue. A lot of companies are looking for funds, and they're focusing solely on whatever their funds get to deploy for sales and marketing to earn that extra dollar revenue. And with that, what happens is company looks at even HR as a cost center rather than ROI driven, investment. And that's where I see a lot of transition, which is required by SMEs and small corporates and mid corporates to actually look at it from the point of view of if we plan it, if we execute it, then this could actually earn us top dollars, because at the end of the day, right talent will get you the right performance, which directly connects with your bottom line. Right. And another point which I like to make here is that, a lot of companies, when they scale up, and the owners of these startups and SMEs, right, because they have to do 50 different things, right, this sort of tend to deviate from the fact that even if they have focus, they're unable to execute what they actually want to do. So it's not just purely because of lack of focus on the HR or the right people or to develop teams. It's just that there's a lack of focus in terms of how they can execute what they really want to do.
Right. And I mean, obviously talent or the right talent plays a big part in it, and finding them or assessing them at the right stage is critical. But there's also the school of thought which kind of says that one should not purely base their hiring decision on assessments, right? Because they only perhaps provide you one facet of that person's caliber or competencies, right? So I mean, how do you think that balance can be found?
So that's a very good point. Indeed, this is a reality. Depends on the research that's behind on every single assessment.
Right.
There are many assessments in the market. However, if an assessment is not pre-validated, if it's not validated for pre-hiring, that's the purpose, then it's not something that will help.
Right.
Now, when we start talking for pre-hiring assessments, one of the benefits that this tool can give is that you can assess, let's say, 1,000 people on equal terms.
Right.
And the most important is that with specific modeling and when we're introducing artificial intelligence, right, is that we can remove bias. So from this starting point of this sample of these 1,000 people that we took as an example, right, you can come and remove any bias on nationalities, on genders, on political views or anything. So what we're trying to do is who is going to do the job and who is not going to do the job.
Right.
And that's at least an objective measure to move these candidates into more constructive interviews.
Right.
And obviously, with the help of technology nowadays, we can process 1,000 candidates in 1 second.
Right.
So from the systems, as an extent from the systems, you can come and choose 3 people that will have these predictions that will be your top performers. Right. And you can spend your time interview these 3 people.
Correct. And I think that kind of then, brings in the whole funneling effect so much more objectively, right? Because bias is, we all know, right? We are in the people profession. Bias is one of the biggest thing that always kind of comes in when you're selecting the right people. But also, like in my career, right? I mean, of being an HR professional, I think when we used to kind of hire, one of the biggest source of hiring has always been referrals, right? I mean, and you actually you see, I mean, companies will have this internal referral program and, kind of each one bring one, or there's a kind of a formal, a financial incentive that actually goes with it, kind of encouraging current employees to bring in. And if you kind of then say, okay, I will hire based on referral, and then on one side I say, okay, let me kind of do scientific competency assessment, there may be a kind of a mismatch when it comes to that, right? What's your views around, referral kind of an approach?
Referrals were always there, and the saying that we were going by it was that good people would bring you good people, and that was true and accurate up to a couple of years back.
Right.
Nowadays, we're hiring more than ever. And the referrals, yes, it's a tool and it will always be there. It's a cheap alternative. However, there's two potential drawbacks. The one is that it can create a homogeneous workforce, which can diverge the whole approach of the business. And this is not going to bring any benefit. The second point is if the referee is leaving the company,
right,
the whole system collapses.
Correct.
So,
right.
And with the most likely, all these people that got referred, they will follow to the next job.
Right.
So it's not really a tool that helps the modern hiring, if you want. Modern hiring should be about diversity.
Right.
We're in a connected world with all these recent events that we've been through. We have millions of people available, and everybody can be considered as a contributing force into the final goal of each company.
Right.
See, if I can add.
Yeah.
See, referral recruitment has its own pros and cons. Obviously, Kyriakos here has mentioned two very key points. However, I can understand also from a company point of view, it's a quick fix.
Right.
However, it may not fit into the larger strategy of actually creating a plan and then executing it. So there are drawbacks to it. We completely understand that. But we can see examples of the same problem, not just in hospitality.
Right.
Financial sector is a very, very, we know about it, that if one manager leaves, all the team is either forced to leave or it goes along with them anyways. So company also loses a lot of investment because they have trained their staff, they spend a lot of money, it's a loss of productivity as well. And then it's overall employee morale as well, because the other team can also see, okay, what if my manager leaves?
Right.
Because the whole team was fired or they left. What about my manager? So what kind of motivation, what kind of morale we are inculcating in these people? So it has huge issues as well. Right. And of course, I understand the pros as well.
Right. No, but you're right. I think this is something as a trend we see so often, right? I mean, this impact of, an entire team kind of coming in, they're very strong, but then as the main person who brought them on and leaves, everybody kind of then starts looking around, because eventually you have not kind of focused on a kind of a non-biased approach of bringing people in and getting them settled so that they develop an affinity towards the company. The affinity remains towards that one person. Mm-hmm. And that obviously then in the longer run is something that it is. But I think, since we're on the topic of a longer run approach, I think a lot of this approach of kind of finding the right people through assessments and everything requires effort, requires time, and you would generally see benefits of it in the longer run. But again, organizations tend to kind of focus more on, instant or constant gratification, right? I mean, I've implemented something, I want to see results now. If I'm not seeing results within like 2 weeks or something, then hey, it didn't work, right? Kind of a thing, right? Does this tool kind of allow for us to be able to see immediate results, or should that even be an expectation?
We should take the thought process back to the design. So, what is the desired goal?
Right.
And to Sumeet's point that for the referrals, yes, it's a quick solution. We will never drop it. Right. So we will keep using it. And if it solves a problem that you have an immediate need, yes, of course, by all means. Right. However, if we're taking a strategic approach on where your workforce wants to reach in 1 year's point, then is what kind of system do you implement to reach the desired results? Yes, technology can bring people in no time, and especially with a solution that everybody's pre-evaluated, means you just need to go online, click, post your jobs, you receive the applicants. In a few clicks, you're there.
Right.
You're just passing to the next step. And where we're going even deeper is that we can minimize again, to our main point today, turnover. Right. So we do have the systems today to come and predict who is the right talent that's going to stay longer with the organization, who is not going to stay long with the organization, because when we're talking for an ROI approach, we need to consider the costs.
Right.
Time, we think that minimum per candidate, the HR manager officer needs to spend at least 14 hours per candidate.
Wow.
The cost, even if you go down without going through an agency or this kind of means, you're starting with, hi, I'm looking for a candidate, 400 per.
Right.
If you continue engaging with your employee, let's say you like him, you want to employ him, 3 months later, maybe it's not the right fit. We're already talking for $4,000 loss.
Right.
Plus, again, the morale goes down.
Right.
The manager needs to go back and cover, and how long it will take us to bring back people, which we know, on average, to hire in Dubai, you need 8 weeks.
Right, for sure.
So this is the benefits of technology.
Right.
And the scientific approach on recruitment. It's definitely a strategic tool. And it's a matter of getting all these professionals that really want to look after their guests.
Right.
I mean, Kyriakos, you made some great points. Asim, I'd like to add one more point here. I mean, the tool is available for all kind of companies, right? Small, big.
Right.
It's all about the vision of the leadership, how they see this tool. Yes, it will help you solve your problem of recruitment by finding the right talent, pre-assessed, so that it fits, the competencies fits the job specific role.
Right.
However, we're forgetting one very important element, which is data. And actionable insight and actionable intelligence.
Right.
As a company, if I am provided with that kind of information, I can really use it to predict who are going to be my next leaders. So this can relate to succession planning,
Definitely.
business continuity management, contingency planning. And currently, if you look at the environment where we are in, most of the companies have failed because they never planned for contingency. Definitely. They never planned for what if this happens, you know? And now that we're in this, just imagine if we had that data, information, and it's an actionable insight, we could use that, or we could use that from the future to plan and prepare ourselves that how we going to keep this succession plan going and for companies to continue in the future as well.
No, and I think such a valid point, because again, the VUCA world is here, right? I mean, the volatility of the market kind of continues. But I think you're very right to say that again, considering that everybody looks for more short-term wins and short-term gains and everything, that longer-term approach doesn't exist, and many companies fail because of that kind of reason. But I also think that it's important for companies to look at what kind of an employee experience it creates, what kind of a takeaway they can have from it as well, right? Because then that's when you're engaging really the right kind of people. And if your people start getting engaged with you right at the beginning with that initial first step, then you already start building that relationship, that engagement, that loyalty, whatever you may want to call it, for their longer term benefit and everything as well, right? Because it's something that Kay said earlier, that in overall focus is to say we need to bring in the right talent, but then we say, okay, we've brought it with the right kind of predictability in mind that they will stay with us. And I think that's where the difference kind of comes in, right? But would you then also recommend that, okay, I mean, I've always believed what you hire against is what you should develop against, so that, you have a continuity of that model that kind of goes with it. So does this tool also allow, a more robust succession approach to be put in place?
This is something that we're working on.
Right.
What we want is once you get the right talent, and of course went through the process of interviewing, everybody approved, he's on board.
Right.
How you staying connected with this talent, because we are humans, and some people, they don't want to express themselves. Some people overexpress themselves.
Right.
So if you have the right manager, he will be able to spot these kind of fluctuations in the personality. So we're going back again to see what do we really ask as a model from the manager.
Right.
Yet when the focus is to run an operation, let's say you have a restaurant of 100 covers and you're doing double sitting, and where the whole team is pumping and running, and you're in this high energy environment.
Right.
It's very, very difficult to go and focus into too much, I would say, to focus too much of who is performing and who is not performing.
Right.
And at the end of the day, nobody wants to run a kindergarten.
Correct.
It's a professional environment. We should aim from the beginning to onboard professionals.
Right.
And that's how we can.
And I think what, again, I've kind of seen is that, stability is so critical at every level of the organization. Sometimes, we tend to say, okay, no, I should have stability in my leadership level. Because at the end of the day, they are the ones who are going to drive the business forward. They're the ones who are going to have that strategic approach and everything. But to be honest, if your front line is unstable, I have seen that also, or that hugely impacts the organization's ability. Because let's say if your front line is unstable, then your next level up, which is your supervisors, are doing the work of the front line. And then your managers are doing the work of the supervisor, which means your directors are doing the job of the managers. So nobody literally is doing their own job. They are just making up for that lack of stability that is there in the organization at every level. I mean, that's such a huge loss of talent anyways, because you hire people for something, and then what you are really getting them to do is a job that is, that they are way above, or, they're just super overqualified for, and you lose out on that talent, isn't it?
Very true. Yeah.
So, from your point of view, what is the overall approach to? And you've kind of obviously met with various organizations. You've kind of discussed and everything. You've gone into so much of research. From your point of view, what is that one or two key competencies for people's stability in the long run? Is something that organizations should look for. We were saying we predict their stability. So what kind of competency, what kind of behaviors show you whether they would be stable or not?
This comes again from the modeling. This is where the beauty of this new style of assessments, if you want, these AI models, where we come and use the existing data. The data will come and tell us what is the drivers.
Right.
It's not us as humans that will come and say, I want A, B, C, drag and drop, and we will. It doesn't work like this.
Right.
So it's the other way around.
Yeah. And that in itself is such a shift of mind frame, right? Because again, as organizations, we always believe that we know what's best. We don't wait for data to tell us actually what really is, because those might be two different things.
But look, to this point, it's not. It's a very recent discovery as well. Earlier years, up to 2010, we didn't have these tools.
Right.
We had these tools disconnected.
Right.
The last couple of years is that we see the rise of these kind of solutions. And it's only human nature. You want to believe what you're trying to achieve is good. I mean, it only makes sense.
Yeah. Same. It's always like in any other technology, you have a technology curve, right?
Right.
So even in hospitality or the tools which you're talking about, they will have a similar kind of a curve. It could be early adapters, it could be late adapter, but at the end of the day, it will plateau down. It will become a norm.
Right.
And that's where the value can be seen, because that will become standard of doing it.
Right.
We can only delay it, but we cannot avoid it.
Right.
So technology will take over. It's just that we have to embrace it rather than oppose it. And quicker we do that, I think it will be better for companies, hotels, or whichever industry sector we're talking about, to actually use technology as enabler rather than saying that, okay, as an HR recruiter, I'm going to lose my job.
Right.
So I think we have to get away with that and upskill, even at HR level, our people to use technology for their benefit rather than oppose it.
Right. But you also typically see a kind of a trend where then, let's say once a company focuses on wanting to adopt this kind of an approach, then everybody wants to build their own bespoke models. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to build their own, does it fit for me? Does it work for me or not? And I kind of think that in today's environment where, being agile and being able to flex based on the market conditions and the way the business is so critical. A fixed competency model is a bit irrelevant, right? Or is becoming more and more irrelevant, right? What do you recommend? The companies should kind of focus on going with something that is more off the shelf, or should they focus creating something that works more for them?
I think it all depends on your business model, and it all depends on strategy all over again. We need to go back to our drawing board and see, okay, where we want to go. Is there some solution available for us which can fit our requirements? If yes, why not? But if not, then we can go to any solution provider and look at solution and customize it. Right. So I think we need to have a more dynamic approach. Mm-hmm. Depending on the size of operation, the complexity, and what you want to achieve in the longer run. Right. I would take that road.
Right. So Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and if I can add, I mean that's the best approach. It's not really it's not it's an expensive exercise.
Right.
So, and from our perspective, what we advise is you can start with whatever is available. All these are in a very good validation level,
Right.
and we're talking up to 70% predictability.
Right.
However, those that they really want to go even more on diversifying themselves,
Right.
yes, definitely go for it. Go and build your own models.
Right, right. No, but I do like the fact, because I think sometimes companies need a kickstart, right? I mean, they kind of need to bring in the approach. And if you do have a tool which is validated internationally through the right kind of supporting research and has kind of gone into the detailed dynamics of what behaviors, drive that predictability, then it's a great thing to start with, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, for our listeners, okay, if you were to give, let's say, 2 or 3 key areas that they should focus on whilst embarking on this kind of a journey, what would you recommend?
To be aligned with the topic today,
Right.
number one is if they're looking for an assessment provider,
Right.
they need to understand that this is going to be a solution. It's going to help them to be on more objectively approach their hiring. However, they need to be very, very careful of the validity and the creditability of the researcher.
Right.
As we said, there is too many assessments out there, but who is behind these assessments? That's the number one.
Right.
Second point, always looking for ROI driven. It's when you start utilizing technology, it's an investment. Therefore, you need to come back and ask for your ROI, because this is all this, and it will be great to start seeing these kind of systems in hospitality, because we're going to see far better service.
Right.
Better service, guests are happier.
Right.
Happier guests, maybe it's an even better world.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
That's the 2 main points I have to add.
Right.
And if I may add, the referrals. I mean, it is there. It will always be there, but don't rely too much.
Right, right. So I think I think that the whole war for talent, or the fight to get the right talent and everything, will continue. And I think retention would require so many other aspects of it. How companies treat people once they're on board, how do you stick to the employee promise, and, how there is a two-way contribution, because I think, employees coming on board need to contribute as much as well. But I think it all starts with that, focus on kind of getting that right talent on board and everything, right? So I think overall, we are reaching that stage where perhaps we see a shift coming into the market. And we touched a little bit upon the whole mindset of productivity, where if you will have the right people, you will be able to kind of get the right productivity as well, right? So Sumeet and Kay, thank you very much for being with us today to talk about this topic. The fight for talent is not going anywhere, and I think it will become even more and more relevant in this market. Focusing on getting the right talent, I think, is where it all starts. So thank you very much for tuning in and for listening in. I hope you enjoyed the podcast as well. And please do leave us a comment or share your opinions, and we'll be happy to kind of hear them. Take care and have a great day. Bye.